Hi. If you're wondering what it takes to make your heart healthy, if you see people who lose 20 pounds and say they're off their blood pressure medication or cholesterol meds and think, I want to do that, or maybe you've heard eating more vegetables and exercising 3 or 4 times a week makes for a healthy heart and you've already been doing your best with that. Maybe you've heard emotions play a role in heart health and you have your own regrets, frustrations, outright betrayals, and heartbreaks. Did you know that there's even something called or broken heart syndrome? That's like a thing. Um, Maybe you've heard that you need to take specific supplements, but then you wonder, how do you even know which ones? And then maybe a friend tells you that someone they know is prescribed supplements, like from a naturopath or something like that. And they also tell you that between the appointment, the blood work, and the supplements, it's kind of a lot of money, like hundreds of dollars. And in your own life, it feels like you're maybe missing some pieces and don't know where they are. Maybe you're really scared. Maybe your family is anxious about your health. And maybe all of this seems super stressful and it feels like you should be doing a better job or something different, but you're also doing the best that you know how to do right now. Maybe you feel like your doctor should be giving you more natural options beyond what you've already found online. And maybe you're really tired of hearing how you've got to lower your inflammation and or your blood sugar, but the needle doesn't seem to want to move very much with your efforts. So it doesn't feel like you're managing your heart health as much as it seems like you should, because it seems like some things are missing. And even though you know it's reversible, heart disease is reversible, it's perfectly researched and known that we, all of us, can prevent heart attack and stroke, and you want that really bad. Something seems a little off. Maybe you're feeling pretty frustrated about it all. And if you're anything like me, I've always said, dang it. Sometimes it's a more dramatic word. If I knew what to do, I would be doing it. And I've also been in your shoes and became one who reversed all the early warning signs. And I know clearly that I want to live a long, healthy life. I don't want to die before my time. And I want to feel really good until it is my time. I hear a lot of women say that. Let me introduce myself. I'm Lori Morris. I'm the author of Reverse Heart Disease Naturally, The Woman's Guide to Not Die Before Your Time. And I help women reverse their markers and prevent heart attacks, strokes, and early death. This is a companion class to the material in the book that we're engaged in right now. And in our time together, we'll go through some of the book today. We can't get it all in, of course, because we're only going to be together for half an hour, or give or take. But we will get through as much of the highlights and the high points as we can. And I do talk fast, so there's that. Some of you might be here live. Some of you might be listening to the recording. And I just want to let you know that I come to this work with my own personal story and the stories of so many women just like you, and a real commitment to lower the statistics of early death for women, because when a heart is struggling, the thing to know is that it's reversible. Like we just said, heart disease is reversible, prevention of heart attacks and strokes is possible, and it's extremely possible to not be a statistic, to not die before your time, and to not live in fear of your health between now and whenever is our time, right? I've had to find my own way on that. My doctors didn't show me this way. They have different options, not bad or good, just in my experience, it wasn't the entire recipe, which I would only consider medication personally as my last resort, and maybe you feel the same way too. I hear a lot of women say that. So I wanted to walk you through in the book the 7-step process to heart health, and I call them fail-proof steps because if one takes them, then research shows that it will work, right? So I want to give you, again, at the high level, these 7 steps in our time together in this class. And I want to ask you to hang on to the end, because I'm going to share one mistake that keeps women from a healthy heart. And by the way, these steps, while they're very particular to the heart, to heart health, they also apply to any health issue. So just keep that in the back of your mind too. Generally, when people come to me, where we start is like kind of taking an inventory. Step one is we have to know the current state of her situation to diagnose and create her personalized treatment plan. And then we move on to her nutrition and what's missing, what might be causing obvious problems, how to move nutritional choices around for optimally lowering inflammation, taking tension and pressure off of her vessels and her heart, and clean up from the inside out. We're always cleansing and purifying when it comes to nutrition, or excuse me, cleansing and nourishing. Purifying and cleansing are actually the same thing, but it's this constant dance of cleansing and nourishing, cleansing and nourishing. And some foods are cleansing, some foods are nourishing, some foods are both, and it's really important to have a good balance between the two so your body isn't building up toxins over time. And almost always the side effects of tending to nutrition is losing weight and also glowing skin. So that's the second step. The first is getting a clear picture, an overview, a heart health assessment, and finding out where she's starting from, and then moving on to the nutritional step. Then the third step is discovering together how she likes to move, not according to the local gym, but according to her body, heart, and soul, because movement honestly should feel enjoyable. And that part matters. And the kind of movement she does, especially if she's more connected to it in an enjoyable way, helps her to be embodied. And being embodied, and what I mean by embodied is that we're actually in our body. We're not only in our head, churning in our mind and our thoughts, but we're in our whole system, our whole body. And that is where all the wisdom and cellular intelligence lives. And it's our job, it's our call, I guess the best word to say is it's our job to awaken and activate that cellular intelligence, and we can't do it if we're not embodied. So that's really important. Being embodied is actually how healing happens day in and day out. It's how we literally dance with the universe or the source of life that's beating your heart and pumping your blood right now as we're together. Mine too, everybody's. And for the most part, being near the body is about what we don't like about our body. So when we think we're in our body, or when we're near to being in our body, what we're almost more often than not doing is we're criticizing what we don't like about our body, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about being embodied so we can beat ourselves up for what we feel like we desperately needs to change, and being scared of our symptoms that are popping up. You might have had that experience too. What I'm talking about in terms of being embodied is actually a different level of connection to our body and that activation of cellular intelligence that resides in every single cell of our body, actually times trillions, because it's actually in every atom, and in every cell there are over 37.2 trillion atoms, and we have over 37.2 trillion cells. So my point is there's a lot of cellular intelligence just waiting for you to awaken and activate it, and that's what I help women do. It's one of the most joyful things that I get to start out with women is teaching them how to do that. So step 4 is how to create cohesion between the mind and the heart, because I just mentioned a minute ago, most of us are really, the mind is running the show. We're kind of operating from the neck up in that in that mental head spin, and the heart tends to be left on the sidelines or off in the dust. And this is a really key step, and the reason why is because if your mind could have healed you by now, she would have done it. The problem is she doesn't know how. That isn't her job. Her job is to be in a sort of a protective mode and to keep you safe and alive. That's her prime directive with you. And every mind, actually, for full wholeness, however imperfect, and deep healing with lasting impact, the head and the heart need to be in cohesion. They need to be in a congruent relationship with each other. And when we have that, that's where healing actually is the deepest, and again, with the most lasting impact. But truthfully, most people haven't been taught this. They're not well practiced at this, mind, head, heart cohesion and balance and dance. Really, it's a dance, because then it becomes a dance with the larger field of life too. So what I've noticed is that many women think they're in a high level relationship with their heart, but they're actually not. And it's kind of, it really is the mind running the show, and it's kind of dangerous to let the mind keep running the show. I mean, it's almost death defying to be in denial about this part of the healing process, because we don't have access to the very thing that would allow for our bodies, our entire mind, emotional body, physical body, and spiritual body to heal. That comes from this cohesion between our head and our heart while we're in our body. So then we move on to step 5, where you discover a unique relationship to time that takes all the things you wish you had time for and make it possible, including your to-do list. This is also without the mind-bending tension and worry that balls will drop, or there just isn't enough time for everything on your to-do list. And a lot of times I'll hear women say they already have a big to-do list. They already are short on time for just what they're already doing. Where in the world will they find time to eat healthier, to get more sleep, to get the right movement that would be serving for their heart, and to engage in this higher level of self-care? And it does seem like the list is long, but that list in and of itself is pretty linear. And we look at that list from our linear analytical mind, and it doesn't match up, because we know how much time there is, we know how much is on the list, and there's usually way more on the list than there is time for. What I teach about in this chapter in more detail is actually how to take time out of the linear, out of the realm of it being only linear, and open it up in a quantum way, where there's a different access to the way we engage with that which needs to be done, and it's gentle, and it's in right order, and it's in divine right timing. So I have had personal experience with this for a number of years now. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years. And I tell the story of how when I first learned about it, and how I used it on something that was I really needed it, and it worked. And since I've taught it to lots of other women, and it's pretty cool, actually. So I'd love for you to have that as well. And then I also wanted to say that this particular step uncovers a quantum relationship to time that is available to everyone who participates, even you. So I know I mentioned the broader field, but I just want you to know that the relationship is available to everyone, even you, meaning the relationship to time in this sort of more open and gentle way. So then we move on to the 6th of the 7 steps, which is how to safely open the closet door to your emotional wounding and dissolve the energy tangles that long-time emotional pain has created. So I can see these tangles in myself and in others, like, if someone's been holding on to a pain or a trauma or a betrayal for a long time, any number of years, and the older we are, of course, the longer time we have to gather these kinds of emotional situations. They're almost like balls of yarn, but with little things sticking out. They're tangles of energy that want nothing more than to be dissolved and dissipated and allowed to kind of flow through, so that a higher level of energy that includes the essence of light and love, which is who we all are. The entire fabric of the universe is love. We just don't always have access to it when there are these kind of blockages or densities in our body, and they tend to be in the general area of our heart, sometimes higher up, sometimes a little lower in our solar plexus or digestive region, sometimes they're in our womb space, but all of those centers actually support a healthy heart foundation, so they all end up being important to all the emotional tangles, wherever they are, end up being important to healthy hearts. And it's no accident that when hearts become, or vessels, literally on the physical level, when arteries become hardened or pressure becomes high, it's because this energy is like it's trying so hard to A, keep you safe, B, not blow, but C is asking for our attention to allow it to move through. And there are beautiful and gentle and loving and graceful ways to do that. So this long time emotional pain does create these dense blockages, and as we gently untangle that energy, it opens up circulation, it softens the arteries, there's more efficient flow, it removes blockages, and this isn't, there isn't a conscious human being that I know of that doesn't realize how important this is at this point in their healing journey. The problem is it just seems a little too scary, which is, in part one of the things the mind tends to help, kind of sabotage us with, or stalls us on, because if the mind figures that if we don't do anything different than we've ever done up until this point and we're still alive, then we shouldn't do anything different. We shouldn't open closet doors, and we shouldn't try new things, and we shouldn't expand our awareness and our options and possibilities, because it seems scary to the mind. Things might not, in her beautiful attempts to keep us alive and safe, if she doesn't know what's in that closet, and in part she does and in part she doesn't, then it's her drive to just, stall things so that everything can just stay status quo. And that happens for every human being, right? And often when women have told me that they've done some emotional work, kind of like around the edges or something, and then when she digs deeper, like when we work together and she digs deeper, she realizes that the work that she's done, while good, never actually pulled up the roots. So it tends to come back around later. And I can't even tell, and I've said this myself too, and maybe you have too. I've heard so many women say, damn it, oh darn it, I thought I already did work on that. But unless we pull up the roots and we do it from a specific healing process that has a high enough frequency to dissolve the lower, denser, more bound up energy, then we'll think we've done the work around it, but it tends to come back around. So when we're just, we're at a point in human consciousness where pulling up the roots is the need of the day. We're all being called to that. And, running like a hamster on a wheel, while it seems like we're really busy and doing stuff, we're not really moving forward, right? We're just spinning around. And so in order to thrive, in order to walk ourselves smack dab in the face to our heart health, this I have found over time, over years, is really important. I actually quote a cardiologist in my book, and he says, and he's been working with cardiac patients for over 20 years, and he says, and I agree with him, that the medical miracles, the Western medical or mainstream medical miracles of stents and heart transplants and ablations and medications and all the things that are available to extend someone's life if they have a heart event are amazing. But he also goes on to say that what he's noticed is that if from here on out, we need a new paradigm for healing the heart that includes all the stuff that we've gathered. But if it doesn't include emotional, psychological, social, and spiritual healing, then it will fall short, and we will still continue to lose people to death, to early deaths, when we don't have to, and it isn't necessary to. So while all those advancements in medicine have been amazing, they're not necessarily nicking away or lowering the early death statistics like they had hoped. And so he has been brave enough to say, as a medical doctor, that if we don't address our emotional and spiritual and psychological um, stuff, then that's a missing piece. And so that I really appreciate him saying that. And he's not the only one. There's another renowned cardiologist who I mentioned in my book, who's actually written a book herself called The Heart Speaks, Mimi Guarneri. And I think my book picks up sort of where her book leaves off, and she touches on how important this element is to full recovery, full prevention and full reversal of heart's problems. So, and then we move on to our last step, and it's a very specific creative healing process that allows for deep connection with your creative life force in order to transform old energy. It's literally alchemy at its best. So, oftentimes, almost everyone I talk to, and I used to be one of these women until I decided I didn't want to be one of these women anymore, who would say things like, I don't have a creative bone in my body, I can't even draw a stick figure. And, that's actually not true. And I'm not actually, well, let me finish what I was going to say. It's not true because each and every one of us, if we are alive and breathing and having our heart beating right now, what is beating, the energy that's beating our heart is the creative life force. The life force is creative by natural. It's by nature. So the creative life force that's beating our heart right now has a tendency to be creative, and you're creative all day long anyway. You just may not see it as yourself as creative because you don't maybe slap paint on a canvas or chip away, marble to create a sculpture, or throw clay on a wheel or whatever. But that's not the level of creativity I'm talking about. I'm talking about accessing the creative life force that's flowing in, through, and around your body right now, and is constantly doing that in order to access levels of creative solutions to problems, and to using that energy to actually transform that emotional stuckness that we were talking about a minute ago. And that's where alchemy shows up, and that's where the ability to transform old energy becomes very, very powerful. You can do this if you're doing it with intention, and I give some steps on how to do this in my book. If you're doing it with intention, then that's the aspect, that's the essence of what then turns what you're doing by intention into creative healing. And there is the outcome of transformation by the very nature of calling that in consciously, a specific intention, and then accessing a creative experience, whether you're making a pot of soup or planting flowers or drawing in a journal or a coloring book. It's all, there are many options on how to do that. And so I don't want you to take yourself out of the game on that by automatically right out of the gate saying, oh, I'm not a creative person, because that would be absolutely false for every human being alive, because there's creative energy that's coursing through your veins right this very moment. So that's actually a really fun, and it's also this step, I came upon this and I describe how all that happened in the book, because I said I never considered myself a creative person, but what I learned is that just the simple act of engaging in a creative process started causing very palpable, consciously noticeable, and lasting transformation and healing for me. And then, since then I've worked with so many women, and they're just like, every one of them are like, wow. They're like, wow, I had no idea. This is pretty amazing. So go check out those steps in the book. And I'll tell you how to get a complimentary copy here in just a minute. So it is one of my favorite steps because it's colorful, it's graceful, it's fun. Sometimes healing doesn't feel fun. And so a long time ago, I asked, just like of my heart, it was an inquiry. I said, since this healing thing seems to be like not a one and done thing, how can I make it more enjoyable and more fun, and make, help me feel more inspired to engage, as often as necessary. And the creative healing is what showed itself to me. And, I've gotten degrees and certificates and how to do it now, and it's now I understand why. It's all based on research. It's as powerful as meditation. So if you're someone who's said, oh, I can't meditate, then this might be, your better choice, because literally we get the same outcome when we're engaged in a creative healing process with intention that we do when we meditate. So that's kind of exciting. So that's the sort of the overall framework that I take people through, and I wanted to give you a good sense of it. So so you know how it goes when I work with people. It's very much like a recent client I had, Amy, and she came to me thinking, I'm 58 years old, and I guess this is the way it's supposed to be. Meaning she just got news that if she didn't change right away some of her lifestyle situations, that she was at very high risk for a heart event. And she says, my doctor is scaring the what out of me. And she says, I'm taking the medication because I don't want to die. Or you might have been told this too. You might have been told that you should be taking medication, but I know, and so she says to me, I know there are more natural ways to come at this, but she felt really stuck between a rock and a hard place, because she felt like she had lots of life to live still. She feels very much like she has a long life to live, but she doesn't want to miss her children's and her grandchildren's milestones. The thought of that, she told me, actually made her heart feel sick. And she's one of those women who's worked hard all her life. For the most part, put herself last, or at least kind of almost lowest on the list. And she's tried over the years taking better care of herself, but she still comes up short in terms of not being able to lose the extra pounds. She does feel tired quite a bit of the time. Her blood work hasn't been changing much, even though she's been trying things here and there. And her doctor was coming on really strong with her about taking the medication. Her family was scared. And frankly, she was both terrified and frozen for what to do about it, because her heart was telling her that there should be other ways, and her and everyone else around her was telling her differently, and she didn't, she just felt really stuck. And then, we worked together, and she told me that having clear steps outlined in a way that made perfect sense to her, and discovering ways to make it easily fit into her life, and then getting the wonderful results of having her doctor tell her, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, keep doing it. and he told her, he said, I think it was after like 4.5 or 5 months or something like that, that he said, you've taken yourself out of that high risk category, and if you keep doing this, you will no longer be at risk for a heart disease or a heart event. And she actually cried when she told me that, because she wanted that so bad. That's exactly what she wanted to be her outcome. And, she now feels a new lease on life, and she feels she has more energy. And she just emailed me the other day and said that she feels better than she did when she was 30. And she loves not being afraid of her body or her health. That's a common theme that comes up for women, that every time they feel something, it makes them afraid. And the freedom from that is really, just really good. So here's the thing that I want you to know, and why I shared Amy's story with you. It's because most people don't do the work, and they don't know what the work is, or they would be doing it. And another woman I know recently came to me late in the game. We actually only had a telephone conversation. She had already had an ablation and 2 heart attacks, and she was only 46. Her family was really pushing her to do whatever it took to get better and to make her heart healthy. And she wanted to, but she was also living in this sort of weird illusion place that a lot of us do. She was too busy right now, and she told me, she said, well, I'll think about it and I'll get back to you soon. I just need things to slow down a little bit before I can think about this, or make a decision about this, meaning taking these steps and doing what it took to make her heart healthy. So a few months went by, I didn't hear from her, and I got an email from her father, actually, that she had died of her final heart attack. And he was devastated, and honestly, so was I. I mean, it's bringing tears up right now, because I had just talked to her, and I wanted her, I wanted more for her than she wanted for herself in our conversation, for her to get on this path of these fail-proof heart steps to heart health. But she couldn't see her way out of this I'm so busy paper bag, I can't do it right now. And that it cost her her life. In my view, taking care of our heart isn't really a luxury. It's not like we're springing for a high-end item like, I don't know, leather seats and that are heated in a new car purchase. It's like our life we're talking about. And it is a matter of life and death. So in my mind, and in all the women I work with's mind, that's the priority. Doing what it takes to prevent and reverse what would otherwise be early death and as soon as possible, like, without delay. So, if you know someone, or maybe it's even you, that is afraid to do this work, I get it. Just know that I get it. I was afraid too when my heart markers started creeping up. And this isn't just me talking. This is research that continues to bear out how preventable heart disease is. And, just, I don't know, right now together we're talking about this new paradigm. So just keep your heart open to it, because I'll tell you a secret. The mind will want to close down hearing like just the simple things that we've been talking about, but the heart, your heart knows that it must move in a direction like this to heal. And I'm alive today because I listen to my heart, and so are so many other women. So I hope you too choose to listen to your heart. And if you do, it means you can start changing your heart health, whether it's opening and cleaning up your vessels, lowering your blood pressure, settling inflammation, reducing pain, healing damaged tissue. It can start happening right now. And without delay, if you say yes to your heart, right? So walking this yes walks you smack dab, I don't know why I like to say it this way, into the face of a long, healthy life that you are meant to live. And emphasis on healthy, right? Because, what's the use of living a long, healthy life if we don't feel well? And besides, it's so expensive to not be healthy. I mean, that's the other thing that is kind of an interesting thing. I don't know, just to put this on hold does not bring health. That just keeps all the same things happening, and even worsening in a lot of cases. Whereas if you were to say yes to your heart, it would bring its opposite, right? You would bring your heart health to yourself. Just like if that 46-year-old woman I told you I talked about, if she had said yes to that, it wouldn't have been too late for her. Normally on these calls, I do a little bit of Q&A, but I only set aside this little chunk of time for us today. And so what I'm going to do in lieu of taking questions is offer all of you listening a opportunity to talk with me privately about your situation. It's a heart health assessment. Everything will be confidential, and I will make it super easy for us to find a time for us to do that together. I'll give you a link to the email for you to schedule that, and I'll also give you the link to a complimentary copy of the book so that you can go through it and make sure and see if this speaks to you, if these steps actually speak to you. And then if you if you'd like for us to talk, then great, you can go ahead and jump on my schedule, and we'll have that heart health assessment together. And I wanted you to know, I know time is a very valuable commodity, and I really appreciate your time today. I know that this is an important message, and if you'd like help further, let me know. And if you wouldn't mind passing this message on to anybody who you feel it would be helpful for, I would love that. And I'll look forward to us being in touch on a more private call. And I'm almost going to tell you the number one mistake, but I also want to tell you that the reason that I wrote this book is because the heart is like a fulcrum for health in our body. And the heart, or the cardiovascular system, affects every single cell in our body. So when I work with women who have early warning signs of heart disease or a confirmed diagnosis of heart disease, they reverse their markers, they heal their heart, and significantly lower their risk of heart attack or stroke. And this is all based on research. And that is why I wrote this book, because for 1/4 of our women to die of a heart attack, taking all her wisdom with her, that is it just doesn't it doesn't compute in my mind and heart. So I am devoted to the healing of hearts. And so let's move on to the number one mistake that I have observed. I wouldn't say it's the number one mistake, but it's up there. And what it is, and I really don't want you to be one of the women who make these mistakes, and that is thinking that early warning signs don't need to be taken seriously. And accompanying that is making the mistake that you'll get everything you need to heal in this great, more impactful, deep, and lasting way from your doctor. Because doctors, they have what they have in their repertoire, which is beautiful and good, but it isn't always the entire recipe. As that one doctor I mentioned told me that the new paradigm must include this, and it isn't always going to come from doctors. So that coming out of a doctor's mouth, I find to be very I don't know. It's a strong message. It's a message to heed. You might get some of the extra ingredients to the recipe, but you might not. And you might have noticed that there's a lot of information when you try to look around on your own. It can be very mixed information, which is very confusing, and it creates that feeling of being stuck and not knowing what to do. And if you think about it, you and I actually have a blueprint for health encoded in every single one of our cells. And there are reasons for our system putting out messages of symptoms. They're messages of intelligence. So early warning signs are intelligent messages of your intelligent body meant to be taken seriously. So don't make the mistake of not taking those messages seriously. So just a brief thing about what do I mean by an intelligent message? Well, if there's a blockage, such as cholesterol or calcium buildup in your arteries, the message is to unblock and open the flow and increase unimpeded circulation. Another example would be when blood pressure is too high. The message is to ease the pressure, right? And sure, medication can do that, but that doesn't get to the root as to why that pressure and that tension got itself to that level in the first place. The message is that the tension and the stress is too much, and the message is please lower it, right? So heart health is vitally important, and it matters very much. So I want to leave you on that loving note that your heart matters, and ask you to check in with your heart and, have serious consideration as to what steps you're going to take. And if you would like help with some of those steps, then let me know, and I'll be happy to offer what I have available to support you. All right, on that heart healthy note, until next time, Lori Morse.